Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 274. Well, we're off to a roaring start here with the new year. I want to thank you for taking time to stop by and give us a listen. And I'm so pleased that you folks so enjoyed episode 273 with my good friend Jason Bolin. A number of you reached out and said you didn't even know who he was, let alone the fact that all those photographs you saw and all those posters, he created. A bunch of you asked if that was kind of like a one-off, or is the Moose Podcast changing format? Well, changing format, not so much. Am I going to be having more conversations with some of my friends you can listen in on? Definitely. Next up to bat is a longtime friend, collaborator, partner in crime, my good friend Russell Brown from Adobe. He'll be coming up here next couple weeks. Good guy, very creative, and I think you're going to find out things about Russell and about Adobe and about your Photoshop and stuff you didn't know was there. So make sure you keep coming back. And I appreciate you telling folks about the Moose Podcast. Yes, there's going to be more and more conversations all year, courtesy of my good friends at Bedford Camera, bedfords.com. Those great folks who got the Z9 and a whole bunch of other stuff in our hands lately. I've got a little crazy probably, the new year, new tax year. We'll blame it on that. That's why. And these folks with all their great knowledge, their resources, and killer pricing, make the Moose Podcast possible. So make sure that you say thank you when you talk to them. And yes, you still get the Moose discount, the Moose coupon. I talked about it a number of episodes ago. It's not quite the same in your cart, but you still get that 5% off. Whatever you buy. So from the good friends at Bedford, bedfords.com, thank you for your support and sponsoring the Moose Podcast. I want to get into this week's episode. Probably my longest title ever, but I can figure out a way of actually condensing it. Will owning the best camera body make you the best photographer? Now, that's my title. And be right off the bat, most of us should know that answer. What got me thinking about it is a couple things of late. One was, this clickbait that came through my stream. I am really still surprised how many people fall for this clickbait stuff that some really just lonely people, non-knowledgeable people, I don't know, keep putting out there and people click on it. This one was, the best camera will make you the best photographer. That was basically the clickbait. And I looked at that and I'm like, oh man. And I kind of I put it in the trash and I kept on going. Later on that day, I thought about it. I said, I wonder what people are, replying and commenting to this. So I went back and dug it out, went to the link, read the comments, and lo and behold, people, hook, line, and sinker, for debating, one, which was the best camera body, and two, how it would make you the best photographer, and three, that you need to sell whatever you've got if you ain't got this, because you need to go buy it if you want to be the best. And I just said, what? I was shocked. Now, yes, some of those people I'm sure were trolls. Some of them very lonely people in their parents' basement. But some of them, because I recognized a few names, are actual shooters who read this and kind of, I guess you could say, bit the hook. And I just want to go through it for a second because, well, we know the answer that the best camera is not going to make you the best photographer. But I don't want to open up that debate about, what's more important, the camera gear or the photographer. Rather, I want to talk about this and understand that it's a marriage, it's a compromise, it's a complete kit. I mean, there's a lot of things that go in here. There's no, like everything photography, no one answer that solves all of it. I mean, we all know that better gear will challenge us into making better photographers. We also know that just because you own a Z9, you're not instantly going to be the best photographer you can be and perhaps rich and famous. There's a conundrum between those two. So let me talk, since the Z9 seems to be on most lips of photographers at the moment, talk about this for a second. So the Z9, it's the first mirrorless Nikon body that's come out with 3D autofocus. Now, 3D's been around for a while. It's not new to Nikon. It's been in many bodies. I don't know how far back, but, for at least 10 years or so. And I have played with it, and I never really, for me, it just never really became a valid tool solving a problem. Then comes the Z9 with its 3D, which has also subject detection for people, critters, mechanical things, planes, cars, trains. And I'm like, wow, there's a whole new dimension to 3D. And then I was talking to Jason Boland, because he was one of the original shooters of the Z9 for the campaign. And he shoots a lot of action. And he said point blank, mate, you got to try the 3.9. That 3D is just amazing in it. And he, of course, he always says Z9. And, we call Z9. And he said, just do it. And I did. And while I've tried the other autofocus modes that are in the Z9, because they're not really that far off from the Z6 II, from the auto area and the dynamic wide, narrow, pinpoint stuff. The 3D, it's radically new, and it works. If you didn't check the video I posted on the website here in the last week, you can see this flicker, and it's just going back and forth, eating the suet. And you can see the eye detection lock on that eye, and it's keeping with that bird going back and forth. It is amazing. Okay, so let's say you own this. And let's say you're using 3D. And let's say you've got this subject, and you're shooting like crazy. And you've got that green box, so you know the camera has locked on. It is focusing, and it's going to get you a sharp picture. Does that guarantee, though, you're going to get a sharp picture? No. Why not? Well, the first reason is you have to give that camera a platform in which to deliver a sharp picture, which means you have to either be using proper long lens technique and proper hand holding technique, or a combination there of both of those, maybe with panning thrown in order for the camera to deliver what it says it can. Just because the camera says it's sharp and it's following that eye doesn't mean and doesn't guarantee a sharp picture. So even though you have the best autofocus right now on the planet working for you in this system, doesn't mean you're going to get the best possible photographs, because you, the photographer, have to finish the loop. What else? Well, we could take the autofocus on one more step. Let's just say you do have the best handhold technique. You have your long lens technique locked down. Your panning is smooth as silk. That still does not guarantee you a sharp picture if, for example, you don't take in consideration the movement of your subject and your shutter speed. I mean, if you're shooting at a half a second, there's no way you're going to stop that flicker, for example, while it's pecking away at that suet. That's just too long of a drag on the shutter for you to stop the motion. Now, if you applied flash, that's another discussion. But it's just an example that just because you have the best doesn't mean you're going to be the best. You have to finish that loop. How about, let's say, for example, let's talk exposure. Let's talk exposure for a second. Let's continue with the Z9, in fact. So the Z9, I'm very fortunate. I have two bodies, which I love because I'm literally testing and them against each other, and they are so unbelievably locked in, just doing delivering the same image to image. It's blowing my mind. In fact, you can even sync the cameras, the clocks and everything. You can sync them. It's very cool. But let's talk exposure. And if you follow my work or you follow the website, you know that I like underexposure. That's been pretty classic throughout, well, basically my whole 40-year career. With the Z9, I have dialed in negative exposure compensation very little for me. I'm having to think about it a little bit more. The exposure, I'm having to think about how I want to tell that story, because the Z9, at least for myself, the way I tell a story, it's nailing the exposure the way that I want it without always having to put in negative exposure compensation. Yeah, that new Xpeed Xpeed chip that's driving not only the autofocus but also the exposure is doing an amazing job looking at those scenes and making them come through the way I want them. Now, there's some verbiage that I still have to check out that makes me think that the camera is actually got a little AI in it. It's learning us as we go out and shoot and bringing more of who we are into the camera, which, if that is correct, that's really mind-boggling. That's very cool. Now, are there more comparisons of this? We can go on. I can go on forever, as you might guess. What's that do for you, though, in your photography? Well, the first thing I want you to think about is the fact that it's not a contest. I put up a picture of my current gear locker, and one person on Facebook said, "You win." And I'm like, how can I make my point? It's not a contest, first of all. And then if you just, and should have had a link. If you look at my old camera locker, gear locker photo, you have seen a ton of gear compared to what it is now. There is so much less in my bag now that I've gone, yes, all mirrorless. There is DSLR gear still in the locker that gets used for video projects, because when you need a second and third body, sometimes, and you need a body that quote unquote is going to be sacrificed, it might not make the shoot. Well, I put a brand new Z9 there and we have a D850 so while we still have some DSLR in the locker, my gear that I'm using is all mirrorless. And when I go out shooting, it's all mirrorless. There's no DSLR anymore. That's really what my point was when I put that photograph and showed it. But you don't need to have necessarily what's latest and greatest. The Z6 II is still an amazing camera. It's still in my bag. I still will shoot with it. First of all, it's really physically small. Next, it's paid for. And lastly, it does a great job putting out really great files. It's been my main camera for about 6 months now or so. The D6, which I really love that camera. I really loved it. It's huge. It's heavy. I mean, the Z9 is 20% smaller and lighter. I like that. And that kind of, brings me down to kind of, how I want to end this particular episode, in that the definition of best is my whole problem with the have the best gear, you'll be the best photographer. Because I think the problem with that is the definition of best. The best, often, and reading those comments to get back to the beginning, everybody was trying to find the best in a way that had capitalism all over it. It had egos and emotions all over it. It did not have personal goals wrapped into it. And I think that's really what really kind of got me going to do this podcast, is the fact that if we strive to do our best, not be the best, but do the best, that if you buy for you the best gear that you can, not the best on the market, the best you can, what fits your realm, your budget, your goals, then you will do the best you can as a photographer. Having all the skills on the planet and trying to shoot critters with a 4x5 speed graphic, while I know it can be done, my good friend Roger Torrey Peterson, that was what he did. Yeah, it's not going to be fun. It's going to be a real chore. It might be hard, really hard, to grow as a photographer. So we can't get that silly with this whole definition. But what we really need to do is just think about and define that word best and how we can make that work for you. That's really what's important here. And I want you to think about it. So even though I there's this meeting every week for, camera gear-aholics, and I am one of the charter members, and I understand that. I'm Moose. I'm a camera-aholic. Don't go by the fact that I have that issue that you need to keep up with me or buy the latest and greatest. You need to buy what works for you as a visual storyteller. Then you will always be challenged and pushing to be the best you can be as a photographer. And that's the goal you should set in front of you. I want to thank you folks for dropping by, and remember to make every click your story.